Hello there, welcome to part 4 of these discussions on modern applied psychology. And in this one I want to discuss some of the deeper waters of these amazing tools that can be employed to help people. Obviously there's a kind of a range of standard things, I guess, that people might come and see somebody like me for, from stress and anxiety to public speaking, passing exams, passing driving tests and so forth. But there are many people in life who unfortunately experience very deep problems. Sometimes these involve sustained abuse as children, or sexual attack as children and also as adults as well. And while occasionally the criminals who do these terrible things are punished, the people who have been on the receiving end of their cruelty can sometimes have lifelong problems. It's debilitating to be terrified of life, and also in pain physically as well. And so being able to use these tools to offer help, offer assistance, sometimes bring about healing, and enable a person to not just survive their terrible ordeals, but also to thrive as well, to step into the lights of new creativity, and to be able to not forgive and forget as such, but to be able to carve out for themselves a kind of a life that they can feel, that they enjoy, that they have a sense of honour about themselves and a sense of pride. One of the most horrible, terrible things you can do to a bully is to have a good life, really. And I love helping people to step from the shadows of their past into the light of something new. I find it to be quite incredible. Part of the reason it touches me so deeply is personal. I have 3 autistic conditions. I have Asperger's syndrome and dyslexia and dyspraxia. And I didn't get diagnosed until I was 40, so I spent the first 40 years of my life feeling like a misfit, wondering why I was so different to the world, and looking at different systems of psychology and esoteric philosophy in order to understand myself well. Not only that, but when I grew up, my mum was chronically disabled. She had a series of heart attacks and strokes. And so while my dad had to do jobs at once in order to sustain the family income, it meant that I looked after my mum. So at the age of 10, I would, wash her and bathe her and give her drugs and make her breakfast even before I'd got myself ready for school and things like this. It was difficult being a child carer. Being an unknown autistic child carer was apparently more difficult still. But one of the, apart from the fear of, the insecurity and kind of thinking, well, wonder if mum's going to die today on a daily basis, one of the strongest feelings I had as a child was that of inadequacy. I watched the person who, wasn't just my support network. I loved my mum deeply, and watching her deal with such pain, almost never ending, for years and years and years, was so difficult because I couldn't do anything, at least at that time. My mum died when I was 19, in 1981. In 2002, my father became ill. He was in his 80s, and I went to visit him in hospital, and he was transferred into an emergency unit. Literally 5 minutes after I arrived, there was some problem. And he was wired up to machines, and his heart rate was going really fast. And he kept slipping in and out of consciousness. Now, by that time, I'd been teaching modern applied psychology for a few years, and I'm used to talking to people, and then they close their eyes, and I wait patiently. They open their eyes, and then I talk some more, and then they close their eyes. It's sort of natural part of my working day. So when my dad started to go in and out of consciousness, I just fell into kind of like a working mode. And I kind of waited with his eyes closed, and he opened his eyes, and I, met his reality. And I said, "You look frightened." I didn't say he was frightened, I just said he looked it. He said, "Wouldn't you be?" And he was rather scared. He closed his eyes and I waited, and for what seemed like an eternity, with all these noise and people and kind of, sirens outside and things going off. And he opened his eyes again, and I said, "There's love here." And he looked at me, and he smiled, and he closed his eyes. And I waited for about another 5 or 10 minutes before he opened his eyes again. And I said to him, "There's love there, you know." And he kind of looked and closed his eyes. And when he opened his eyes the next time, I said, "It's neither here nor there where you are. There's love wherever you happen to be." And the night before he died, he was staring off into space a lot. And I knew that he was preparing to leave this realm. And I kind of just sat with him very patiently, just watching him look off into space. And when he kind of looked at me the next time, I said, "There's love there, you know." And he looked me straight in the eye and said, "I know." And he didn't have a trace of fear. And that next day he passed. And I know that I helped my father to leave this life being unafraid of death. And I wish I'd had this toolkit so that I could have helped my mum in a similar way. You do have opportunities with these tools to be able to help people on very deep and profound levels. And sometimes we can help people in ways that seem to be trivial, but in actual fact can lead to something profound. I was at a psychic fair one time, and I'd already had a conversation with somebody a couple of years before about hypnosis, and this chap was saying, "It's rubbish," he said. "I went to a Mind, Body, Spirit festival in London, big kind of event, at Battersea. Then you're walking along this corridor and there were little booths going off, and different therapists doing different things in these booths, and you kind of go into one and experiment what they do, Indian head massage or, acupuncture or whatever. And so with all this hullabaloo and hubbub and noise and shouts and children shouting and things, he went in this little booth and someone was going to demonstrate hypnotherapy with him. And this woman said in a sing-songy voice, "So you're walking on the beach and you can feel the sun on your arms," and like that. And he thought, "No, I can't. I can't hear the sea. I can hear people shouting on the other side of the partition, And she wasn't meeting his reality. She had a pre-prepared script, and she was trying to tell him that he was experiencing her pre-prepared script, and she wasn't paying attention to him. And so I listened to this guy, and I thought, yes, okay. So I learned about that, and I was doing a little kind of a psychic fair thing. I had some cassette tapes of relaxation. It's a long while ago, and in this very noisy room with strip lighting and lots of different kind of booths going on, people having readings and stuff, this young man came up to this desk where I was sitting, and his hands were visibly shaking. And I looked at his hands, then I looked up at him, and I looked at his hands, and he said, "Relaxation?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh, I've just been on a course of relaxation." And I looked at his hands again and looked at them twitching, and I thought, either the people who ran that course weren't very good, or he was in a really bad way before he joined it. So I said, "Really, would you like to relax deeply enough that your hands relax as well?" He said, "Well, that'd be good. Do you think this cassette tape would do that?" And I said, "Well, if we were in a music shop, you'd have the ability to listen on headphones and preview it. We can't do a preview here, but I can give you a live demonstration if you want." And he said, What, here? In this very kind of noisy room with all these bright lights? I said, "Sure." So I took him to the back of the room and sat him on a little chair, and I started talking to him, and amongst one of the things I said to him was, "Well, you can hear all this noise around you." He said, "Yeah." And I said, "You can see these strip lights and things?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "And you can close your eyes?" And he closed his eyes. And I said, "And you can allow all the sounds around you to take you into states of deep comfort now." And he listened and slumped in his chair. And I just left him there for 20 minutes and went and, have him return to his normal waking state. And when he opened his eyes and he returned, his hands were calm and still, and he bought a cassette. So I kind of tell my students all of these sorts of little stories and anecdotes of helping people through the years while we're at tea break and while we go for lunch and things. And I had a student last year who listened to these tales, and unfortunately, after the first class, his father became ill, and he went to the hospital, and his dad was wired up to machines and things like this, and he was in a great deal of agitation and distress. He'd had a heart attack, and he noticed that his father was becoming very agitated with each time that there was a loud noise, and in the corridor of the hospital there was lots of kind of comings and goings and doors swinging and people putting things down. And so he said to his father, "There's a lot of noise here, isn't there, Dad?" And his dad said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, you can allow all the sounds around you to take you into a deep state of comfort now." And his dad began to relax. And as he began to kind of describe facets of his dad's childhood memories and boyhood memories and things, he noticed that the counters of the machinery began to change. The heart rate monitors began to slow. The breathing rate monitors began to slow. And as he was talking to his father, he could see the numbers on the machines visibly changing. He's of the opinion that the tools that he learned, even just after an introduction day and the first day of the course, helped him to help his father pass more smoothly, more easily. It's a very profound thing to be able to give a person tools in which they can do such a thing. I find that it's a privilege. Michael Harrison, the person who taught me, once said to me that when we work on this kind of level, he said, "David, I believe we work deep at the core level of a person's soul, and it's both humbling and it's a privilege to be able to step into a person's world in that much depth." And I absolutely agree with Michael Harrison on that basis. It feels sometimes like one is placed in someone's path almost, so that you can open a door of light for them. And when people have the courage to heal, and it does take courage to heal, being able to show them how to step onto new pathways is a beautiful, amazing thing to be able to do. And these tools have enabled me to be able to help people with such things. And there is a very big difference between my life before and my life since. And that's not a lightweight claim. It's a very big deal. And so I have no idea if these tools, if modern applied psychology is something of interest to you or not watching this. But I can let you know that if you step into this realm, you find not just how to be able to kind of change things for yourself, resolve deep issues, open doors of new creativity, but you can do the same for the people around you as well. You can help your children to go through exams more competently with less effort, to be able to learn more. You can show people how to be able to not just kind of fix things, but also to be able to create brand new concepts for themselves, and to even live a kind of lifestyle that used to be a dream, but then they can bring that dream into a reality. It's cool stuff. And yeah, I'd highly recommend it. It's a great adventure in consciousness. And part of the reading list are the latest ideas of consciousness as well. So there is in the master practitioner level, there is a lot of available information through book lists and things. I'm hopefully, I don't know what I come across like on these videos. Some people look at my website and form the conclusion that I'm an academic intellect. I'm a working class lad from Slough. I left school without any qualifications at all, not even a GCSE, nothing, zilch, zero. And I taught myself. I read and I read and I read as many subjects as I could through my 20s. The first thing I did in terms of passing anything was a driving test. And then I did my NLP training with Michael Harrison. I became disillusioned with the NLP community, at the time, so I changed the name of what I did to Modern Applied Psychology and started to incorporate other things. I got diagnosed as being autistic when I was 40, and I began my academic path when I was 40 as well. So I went to university for the first time, and I did a master's degree from a standing start with no previous education whatsoever in a year. And I got a distinction for my dissertation. But that could have been a fluke. So a few years later, I did another master's degree, this time a Master of Science in Psychosocial Studies. And I got distinctions for a couple of papers, and I got a distinction for the degree overall. So now I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's not a fluke. I really can do this. People have tried to tell me you should really do a PhD now, that master's degrees are not Cub Scout badges. But that's what they seem like to me. I love learning, and I love being in a room listening to someone who knows their stuff, open doors and illuminate things for me. This world is huge and vast, and there's no way we can learn everything about everything. But being able to enrich your life by learning more things is something that I find I have a passion for. I have a hunger. I thirst for knowledge, and I desire to kind of know more. And one of the things I find that I always do when I'm running a course is I learn from the people who come along. Everyone who comes on a training course brings their own history, their own perspectives, their own techniques, their own ways of doing things, and it always enriches my life as well. So it's an honour to be able to take new pathways with people and share such experiences. Thank you for listening to this video in this little series on Modern Applied Psychology. I'll put contact details below the video, an email address and website, etc. And look forward to hearing from you. Take very good care. Thank you for listening. Bye.